All right. Thank you guys so much for being here today to discuss this really important topic. 3 tips for hiring new employees, whether it's your first or your 50th. We need to know how to do this so that we can keep the good ones and ultimately protect our business. And so, if you decided to join us today, that's probably part of the reason that you're here is to do just that. So before I jump into our content, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself and about San Gabriel Valley Law. We protect California business owners from devastating door closing employee lawsuits before they happen. We work only with small business owners. We love small business owners. We are small business owners, and we come from a family of small business owners. So we're passionate, needless to say. Um, Before I was an attorney and before I was the owner of San Gabriel Valley Law, I was a human resources professional for a decade. I also work now as an adjunct professor of human resources at a master's degree level program, and I'm a girl mom. What would a free webinar be without a friendly disclaimer? Well, here's our disclaimer. So this information is for educational purposes only. As you know, it's being recorded for content and future production. So if you're not okay with that, please log off now. This isn't legal advice, and you should consult a qualified employment attorney in your area to talk to them about your specific situation. And lastly, this is intended for California audiences only. All right, let's jump into our overview. So today's presentation is going to cover these things: the 4 stages of hiring, how you're likely doing it now versus how you could do it better. And if you're watching this today, that's probably why you're here. You feel like you could do it better, and something in the process has tipped you off to that. We're going to dive a little bit deeper and explore that. And I'm going to infuse some tips into there to streamline the process, as well as legal tips to keep your business safe from a discrimination lawsuit. And then ultimately, just how to streamline it overall so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. I don't want you to have to dread hiring, but if you do dread it, I don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel every single time. There's a couple of things you can do now so that if and when you need to hire, you're ready, and you don't have to start over every single time. And then lastly, at the end, if we do have time, I'll take questions. And you can go ahead and type your questions into the chat and submit those. And at the end, if we have time, I will cover those questions. Okay, let's get going then. Here we go. Let's start with some facts. I love the facts. So in 2020, there were over 50,000 employment lawsuits filed. And excuse me, I messed up that statistic. In 2020, there were over 50,000 discrimination lawsuits filed. Discrimination lawsuits are filed when you violate a protected status. So protected statuses are these things on this list here: sex, gender, race, ancestry, color, age, and national origin. There are others in addition to that list specific to California. Illegal discrimination happens in employment when someone is treated differently based on something on this list, a protected status, such as race or color, which is covered under anti-discrimination laws. So there are 2 times when these things happen in the employment relationship. The first is during hiring, and the second is after hiring, during the employment relationship. So the employment relationship is the largest amount of time, but hiring is the other opportunity for us to get ourselves into trouble with discrimination and potentially bring on a lawsuit of discrimination. So that's why it's so important how much we focus on our hiring process, because there's so much opportunity there for us to get ourselves into hot water. So in the hiring process, this is kind of how it could look, how you could get accused of discrimination. You can have 2 like candidates and you hire one and not the other. And you may say, well, can't I do that? Can't I hire one and not the other? Of course you could hire one and not the other. But from your perspective as an employer, the way you protect yourself is to make it really clear why you are picking one and not the other, and tying that reason back to a job related reason. So, the only way to know, though, that it's a job related reason and not a discriminatory reason is to know the exact job that you're hiring for. And that may sound kind of like, of course, I know the job I'm hiring for. I'm hiring for that job. But you'll see as we break it down, and I'm going to give you a real, we're going to do like an exercise together. I think you'll see what I mean, that oftentimes we go into hiring not even really knowing the job that we're looking for, and we kind of just jump in and start going. So I want to prevent that so that we can protect our business. And then in the employment relationship, after we've hired them, discrimination lawsuits come by hiring or by promoting someone or demoting someone, firing someone, denying an employee certain benefits or maternity leave or leaves of absences. And that leaves room for people to claim discrimination if we're not crystal clear on our process. And we actually will cover that in another webinar. So keep that in mind. For today, we're diving into the hiring process. Okay. So if you're like most people, your hiring process probably looks a little something like this. You get swamped, right? Work piles up. You look like this lady over here. You're up to your eyeballs in work and you panic. And you say, I've got to hire someone. I can't keep going like this. So you post a job online. You have someone respond. You talk to them. They seem nice. They seem good. They have some experience. You hire them. They get thrown in 2 weeks later, right? Does your process kind of look like this? Look, I get it. As business owners, time is our most precious resource. And so oftentimes we get bogged down and we resort to hiring like this. But if you're currently hiring like this or some variation of this, chances are you're not getting great candidates. And if you are getting great candidates, you're probably not retaining them. And you're exposing yourself to unnecessary liability. So today I want to suggest a better way that will require you to go back to the drawing board a little bit. But if you take the time to go back to the drawing board and do it once, you really won't have to do it again. And so it's worth the investment of time now to regain your time and your peace of mind later that you're doing it right. Okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So our first tip is to devise a plan. It all starts with a plan. Sales, life coach, and business expert Napoleon Hill said it best. Plan your work and work your plan. Running a successful business is all about having a plan and executing on that plan. And hiring is no different. Having a solid plan usually means that we have something in writing, something concrete to refer back to. And from a legal perspective, having something concrete in writing is a good thing that will help protect your business if and when someone files a lawsuit against you. So tip 1, devise a plan. And we're going to talk more about that plan. So here's what your hiring plan should look like. These are the 4 major parts of a hiring plan. These are the same major parts as the original hiring plan I showed, the panic hiring plan, the way we're probably doing it right now. You have a need, you recruit for the need, you interview for the need, and then you onboard. It's the same major phases and major parts, but how you approach each one with a plan is going to look totally different. And so we're going to go over each one and spend the bulk of our time really exploring each one and the things you can do now to handle each one to maximize your results and minimize the amount of effort you really have to put into each. So here's those same 4 phases as the panic version, but this is what they would look like with a plan. So we have a need. Instead of scrambling, instead of panicking, instead of shutting down emotionally, or however we handle with stress, we have a need, but we already know this need because we have a business plan. Our business plan predicts the need to hire long before our bodies or our businesses do. We can actually look ahead and see that we need to hire because our business plan tells us we need to hire. If you don't have a business plan currently, or if it's been a long time since you dusted off that business plan, I strongly encourage you to revisit it and enlist the help of a coach or another savvy business partner who can kind of talk you through it and help you see it clearly. Because think about it logically for a second. If your goal in 2022 is to grow your business, for your business to reach new milestones, new metrics, new revenue goals, are you going to really be able to do that with the current staff that you have? The answer is probably not. You probably need to hire. So make sure that your goals for growth align with your hiring goals. And you can see that before the panic sets in by looking at your business plan. All right, the second phase is recruiting. We look for people to meet this need. So we're recruiting with a job posting that matches our job description. And we're going to dive deeper into that. So instead of just kind of posting something online that says help wanted, or putting a sign out that says help needed, or just kind of shouting it from the rooftops, we're putting a really specific job posting online or on a job board that matches the job description that we're actually hiring for. The third thing is interviewing. This is our third phase. Instead of sitting down and having a conversation and going with our gut reaction, I like them. They seem a lot like me when I started out. Or I didn't like them. I didn't like their answer because it seems like, they made a face when they said that. So I think they might have a bad attitude, right? Instead of trusting our gut, we can trust the job description. And we build our questions based on that job description. So we can create sets of questions now that can gain crucial insight into this person's ability to meet the job duties because we know the job that we're hiring for. It all goes hand in hand, and I'll explain further. And then our fourth phase is really that offer and onboarding phase. So here, presentation matters. We're going to talk more about what it should look like when you onboard a new employee, so that you can maximize the chances of retaining that person long term if that's what you want to do. Also in this stage, you should have a legally compliant employment attorney approved employment offer letter, a handbook, policies, and a new hire orientation, which sounds daunting, but it doesn't have to be. So stick with me and we'll go through each one more in depth. All right, so let's break it down. So this is the having a need phase, right? The way it is now, how do you know how to hire? How do you currently know how to hire? Is it because you're burnt out? Is it because you're looking forward to vacation? Of course, that's valid. You are a human being. You need to take a vacation. You need to limit your stress. But again, you don't have to wait to get to that point. Instead, we can look at our business plan so that we can project future growth. And when you're ready or planning to get ready, here's the steps that you can take to go forward. So first, make a list of the specific job duties you need help with. Write it down. I recently hired a new administrative assistant, and what I would do is when I couldn't sleep because of all the things on my mind, I would just jot it down on a notepad, and I would keep a running list of all the tasks that I knew this person could do, the things that I could delegate. I encourage you to do the same. Write a list, add to the list all the job duties that you need help with. Then group like job duties together and really look at these like duties. And I'm going to break this down further. You'll see exactly what I mean by this. But this is where you're going to evaluate if you perhaps need to hire two people, or perhaps you need to hire for two different jobs. You'll know this because of the amount of duties and the type of duties that you're needing to pass on. Thirdly, you want to write the job posting based on these specific job duties so that the person who's answering your post knows exactly what they're applying for. All right, I'm going to show you an example. We're going to break it down. All right, here's our example. Here's Carlos. Doesn't Carlos look stressed out? Carlos is the owner of an architecture firm. He's swamped with client phone calls, client emails, as well as actually doing the architecture work. He has to do the work. He's the architect. He often gets interrupted with prospective client phone calls because he needs to get new clients, right? And consultations. Additionally, he'd really like to go to Chamber of Commerce meetings to market his firm, but he never has the time. He decides he needs to hire an administrative assistant to take care of all of these tasks so that he can focus only on doing architecture work. Let me ask you guys this. Is an administrative assistant the right position to recruit for? So think about what Carlos is saying, what he needs help with. Is it still the right position to recruit for? Well, let's break it down. So remember our steps, what we said, okay? And we're going to refer back to them. By following these three steps from our previous slide, we can figure out what Carlos actually needs. So from our example, here are the needs that Carlos expressed. He needs help answering client phone calls. He needs help answering client emails. He needs help with architecture projects. He needs help with prospective client phone calls, prospective client consultations, and he needs help marketing the firm at chamber events. So step one in our process from the previous slide, we're going to make a list of the specific job duties you need help with. That's what the need is right there. These are the specific job duties that Carlos needs help with. Secondly, we're going to group like job duties together to evaluate exactly who you need to hire and perhaps if you need to hire more than one. So take a look at job number one. Carlos needs help answering client phone calls and client emails. The best person for this job is an administrative assistant, and those duties fall in line with an administrative assistant. If you look at job number two, based on his needs, Carlos has said that he needs help with prospective client phone calls, consultations, and marketing the firm at chamber events. This is the role of a salesperson, taking client phone calls, intake, selling them during a consultation, because that's really what he's doing, selling them on the services that they need, and then marketing the firm outside of firm hours. That's a salesperson or a marketing person. And then job number three, architecture projects. Is an administrative assistant the best person to do architecture projects? No, a junior architect is, or maybe even a senior architect, based on how much work Carlos actually has. So if you take a look at this, when we break it down, you'll see that Carlos actually has three very different jobs he needs to hire for. Now, he may not have the budget for all three of these jobs. That's fine. That's realistic. But if he tries to hire one admin assistant and give them all of these tasks, or even just job one and job two, if he tries to push it into one person, this person could be a wonderful person, a great hire. But if you try to combine too much for one person, we're going to lose them. We're going to overload them. Or worse, we're going to retain them and they're going to become very, very, very toxic employees who can lead us into a lawsuit. We don't want that. So this exercise alone is crucial to figuring out your hiring needs before you dive in. So how I broke it down right here is exactly what you can and should do when you're preparing to hire. All right, phase 2 is the recruitment phase, looking for people to meet the need. So let's look at how we would recruit for each job and how we should phrase the job posting so we can get a wide variety of candidates. So I've broken down each job here, and over on the right side, I've kind of broken down some things that we could put in the job posting as what we need or what we're looking for. Let's take a look at the administrative assistant job. So we already said we need this person to answer client phone calls and answer client emails. Based on those tasks that we need them to do, here are some really great requirements that we can put in the job posting. 1 year of customer service experience required, because we know that answering phones and dealing with people is pretty much all customer service. Someone who has experience in customer service would be a great fit for this role. Now, Carlos is hiring for an architecture firm. So he doesn't necessarily need someone who has architecture experience to answer his phones if they have customer service experience. And so the thing that we don't want to forsake is that customer service experience. Because if they have that, that means that they can deal with people, they can adapt, and hopefully we hire someone who's capable enough to learn about the architecture firm so that they can kind of modify their approach to mirror the architecture firm. But what is harder to teach is that customer service piece. We also need to understand the difference between utilizing required versus preferred. So required means minimum. You must have this. So in our administrative assistant example, we must have someone who has customer service experience. That's non-negotiable. It's required. That's what that means when we put it there. That means that we're not going to hire anybody who doesn't have customer service experience. But it's also subjective for us, the owner, to decide what exactly is customer service experience. That could mean working in a restaurant. That could mean working the front desk at a gym. That could mean a lot of things. And you can kind of decide what that means. I can always choose someone who has more than 1 year of experience, but what this means by putting required is that I will not choose someone who has less. So you want to be very careful about using the term required. You want to use it sparingly, because if you deviate from those standards, if you say 1 year experience is required, but you hire someone with less, you're opening yourself up to liability and a claim of discrimination because you're not even sticking to your own requirements. Okay. Preferred, using the term preferred, you use that all you want. Preferred is really used to weed people out. I prefer you have 1 year of experience, but it's not required. But if I have 2 light candidates, then I can choose the one with the preferred qualifications. So preferred really allows me to weed people out. In the administrative assistant example, if I have 2 light candidates, both have the 1 year of customer service experience, but one has prior experience in an architecture firm, this allows me to choose that person over the other person and not open myself up to a discrimination claim because I've already stated that this is preferred. So use preferred. That's a great option in writing your job posting. But knowing the difference and utilizing this will help you get qualified candidates you may have otherwise passed off. So it's really a balance between required and preferred to make sure that you're getting as wide a pool as possible, but also allowing yourself some room to weed people out, which is important. All right, let's go to phase 3. Phase 3 is all about interviewing. Now that you know the job and the skills you're looking for, you can craft questions out of that job description, and you should. You need to craft your interview questions based on that job description, because this is going to be the best way to know if this person has the skills to do the job that you want. You don't want to craft pie in the sky questions, or even hypothetical questions, because you're really testing, I think, someone's imagination more than their experience. You want to test their experience. The best way to do this is through behavior based interviewing questions. Behavior based interviewing questions say the best predictor of future performance is prior behavior. So, the best way I can know that you're a good fit for my firm is to see what you've done before. We're going to draw from past experiences, even if it's not related to this specific job. But by drawing on those past experiences, a candidate can show you they have what it takes to teach the job at hand. So I used to teach interviewing skills in the hotels when I worked in HR, and I worked in hotels. And so I used to teach them to the managers who would go on and recruit for their individual departments. And I had this manager one time who thought he just had the best interviewing question of all time. And he said, this was his interviewing question: if you could be an animal, what would you be and why? And it goes back to those hypotheticals I was sharing. He said he thought that it showed him a lot about the person. It showed them, depending on what animal they chose, it could show him all these great things or bad things about a person. But there are so much better questions that have to do with the actual job, which is, again, the best predictor of future performance than hypothetical questions will ever be. Because at best, you're testing someone's imagination, their ability to think on their feet, but not really testing them based on the actual job. And if you want to stay out of legal gray zones, legal danger zones, then it's always best to stick to the job description. And you already did the work. You already know what the job is that you're hiring for. Crafting these questions should come somewhat easily. Maybe not the first time, but the beauty is that once you have them, you can really utilize them for every interview, with a couple of tweaks for specific job skills. So behavior-based interviewing questions really works when you make it about the skills necessary to the job. Skills like resiliency, problem solving, time management, professionalism. For instance, a mom re-entering the workforce after raising children may have never worked in a busy architecture firm like Carlos is hiring for. She may have never met an architect, but she probably prepared a bottle, answered the phone, cooked dinner, and got the mail, all while having a baby scream at her, right? This tells us she knows how to work under pressure. And utilizing behavior-based interviewing questions will reveal these skills. So once you know the skills you need in the job posting, you write these questions. You keep a set for every job position you recruit for. And when it's time to interview, you grab your file and you go to your interview, and you already have your questions made for you. You keep a set handy and you're good to go. By asking every person who interviews for that position the same question, you're removing that ambiguity and room for claims of treating people different or discrimination. So Carlos is hiring for that administrative assistant position. In the green portion, we have all of the things that the task that this person has to do, and then the job posting, what he's looking for, the customer service, the prior experience. Here's 3 questions that Carlos could ask that are behavior-based that will help him discern whether or not this person is a good match for this position, whether this person has what it takes to meet this position. For instance, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time you handled multiple tasks with varying deadlines. How did you prioritize what got done first? Note, Carlos is not asking, tell me about a time you worked in a busy architecture firm and, three partners asked you for a job at the same time. How did you handle that architecture firm's project? He's not asking for that because that's not what's required. This person doesn't have to have worked in an architecture firm. They just have to have dealt with multiple tasks and varying deadlines. And based on this person's experience, they could be able to come up with an example that demonstrates that they've done this and they've done it successfully. And that could have nothing to do with work. It could be personal as well. The second question, tell me about a time you had a project with a deadline. Walk me through the steps of how you handled it. This question is going to show you how methodical and organized a person is. If their project was, it could be really anything. It could be, creating a client onboarding program. So that's my project. And they walk you through each step. First, I created a list of all of our clients. Then I sorted them based on like client types. I don't know. Thirdly, I did some research into this type of client and their specific needs that they have that our firm deals with. Then, do you see what I mean? They're walking you through it to show you their thought process. And you, as the interviewer, can see that they're organized, that they're methodical. And this will show you that that's probably how they're going to do their work for you. That's probably how they're going to work because that's how they worked in the past. And then the third question, you just tell me about a time you disagreed with a coworker on your own team or another team. What was the disagreement and how did you handle it? This is an important question to find out what upsets them, how they work with other people, how they handle conflict, because that is a natural part of any working relationship. We're going to have conflict, and you want to see what role this person plays in those conflicts. Are they the peacemaker? Do they run from conflict? Are they the person who starts the conflict? You want to know, and this question will give you insight into that. So again, behavior-based interviewing is all about past performance, predicting future performance. And starting your questions with tell me about a time takes it out of hypothetical situations and really increases the odds that you're going to choose to hire someone who has done this before. The fourth phase is the offer and onboarding. So you've recruited, you've interviewed, now you're ready to make the offer. You need to keep in mind here the legal and the people considerations. From a legal standpoint, here's what you need to think about. You need to think about protecting your business from employee lawsuits. You need to think about protecting your brand and your trade secrets. You need to think about complying with the law. And you need to think about setting clear expectations. These are our legal responsibilities as employers. Then there's people considerations. From a people standpoint, you need to consider getting buy-in, how you're going to get this person to attach themselves to your business so that there's increased loyalty and retention. That's the goal. We don't want to be doing this all the time. We don't want to have employee turnover because look at our statistic up here. Employee turnover costs businesses 1.5 to 2 times the employee's annual salary. And that's on the conservative side. So if you're hiring a $50,000 a year employee, that's $25,000 and up per every time you have to recruit and hire for that person. So keeping these people considerations in mind, getting buy-in, making people feel a part of something, and then helping people grow are going to decrease your likeliness of employee turnover and decrease the likeliness of wasting time, which wastes money. And none of us can afford to do that. So employee turnover costs. We know that it costs time and it costs money. And the cost of replacing employees every single year is not something that any of us should want to bear. I'm pretty sure none of us do. But if we do it right the first time, it'll save us time and it'll save us money. So let's break this down a little bit further. So here's what this looks like in the offer phase and the onboarding phase. So remember, we said that we have to be thinking about our legal considerations and our people considerations. So in the offer phase, the way we protect our legal, or excuse me, the way we concentrate on our legal considerations is by having a solid employment agreement. Every person that you hire should have an employment agreement. This is going to govern the terms of their employment, tell them how they're paid, and include a very specific and important arbitration agreement, which is going to help you in the event that you're sued avoid litigation, which is very expensive, very time consuming, and very stressful, and instead put it into arbitration, which is not as costly, not as stressful, and not as time consuming. So every employment agreement should also have an arbitration agreement. All of your policies and procedures should be reviewed by an employment attorney. This is something that if you do it right, you only have to do once. And then every year, you should just have these things reviewed by an employment attorney to make sure that it's updated according to the law. You should have an employee handbook that is also created once and reviewed every single year by an employment attorney. And then a sick and vacation policy. So sick in California is required, and sick pay. And certain counties have very specific laws regarding sick pay. You need to know what those are and ensure that you are compliant. Vacation is viewed as wages by California law. So this is like the same as an hourly wage. And sick and vacation are some of the most heavily litigated issues in California. You cannot afford to get sued for these things. So do it one time, do it right, and then all you have to do is maintenance going forward. But if you don't do it right in the beginning, it's going to be looming over you. You're going to be scared every time someone leaves you. You're going to be scared to fire people, which is going to mean that you're going to tolerate poor performance. And you don't have to be. You just have to do it right one time and then maintain it going forward. In the onboarding phase, this is where we build loyalty. So your employees should have a training schedule. They should know what their first week is going to look like. And it doesn't have to be fancy. I'll show you a sample of a training schedule in just a bit that I would do. You could, as part of that training schedule, arrange for them to have lunch with someone different every single day, depending on how big your staff is. Day one, they're going to have lunch with their department or their direct supervisor. Day two, it's going to be with you. Day three, it's the whole team. Whatever order you want to do it with. But when you're a new employee, that can be anxiety producing. Who do I eat lunch with? What does everyone do for lunch? Do they bring their lunch? Do they go out to lunch? Answer that question for them. Remove anxiety and build loyalty within your team. New hire orientation. Depending on the size of your operation, if it's a small operation, this could literally be one day, half a day. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It should just be something a little bit formal. So it's a schedule. They show up to work at 9 a.m. They're going to do their paperwork. They're going to be greeted by the office manager or whoever is going to do their paperwork. Then they're going to watch a training video. Then they're going to go to lunch with their supervisor. Then they're going to sit in on a webinar. It's just a formal process. But in that new hire orientation, they should learn about your business. They should learn who you help, who your clients are, why what you're doing is so important, so that they can become a part of that vision. You want people to be part of your vision so that they can help your business grow. And then as sort of the culmination of the onboarding process is that 90-day review process. They should know at the very beginning, this should actually be in your employee handbook, that at 90 days, they're going to be reviewed. That's not the only time they should be reviewed. And you'll see in my sample training schedule that I'll show you in a second, that they should be reviewed much more often than that, but definitely 90 day. At 90 day, this is where you could increase their rate if you want to. You should not increase their rate prior to that. They have not proven anything. This is where they could be eligible for certain benefits. But at the very least, this is where they're going to know that they have done great and that they're ready, that they've passed this process and they're a part of the team. It can be a motivating factor for them to show you that they're doing excellent. And I'll show you a little bit more in detail. But first, another statistic. So 67% of California business owners get sued every single year by their employees. Protect your business during the offer and onboarding. By targeting these key stages, you can reduce the likeliness that you're going to be part of these statistics. But at the very least, you can actually build your defense to one of these lawsuits and protect your business before the lawsuit even comes. And that's really by having this part of the process approved by an employment attorney and mapped out for you so that you can proceed with peace of mind and with the assurance that your business is protected. It's legally protected. Okay. So here's what a sample onboarding process could look like. Remember, this is our chance to build loyalty. It's a unique opportunity that we will never get again. You've likely had employees or you've worked places where people start out great and then they sour. And you're like, what happened to that guy? He was so good. He started so good. Sometimes it's them. You know, they fooled us. That's really who they are from the beginning. They weren't really that great and they're just showing their true colors. But a lot of times we have to take responsibility for not properly introducing them to what it means to work with us. And that's part of that is the setting expectations process. So when you're onboarding a new employee, taking the time to write a schedule like this can dramatically impact your retention and your employee buy-in. And remember, do it once and you can repeat this process for every single new hire that you onboard. So here's a sample of what week one can include. During week one, you're going to have skills training. You're going to have them actually, dipping their toes into what they're going to be doing in this job. I would recommend that they have daily one-to-one meetings with their direct supervisor, a check-in. It could be 15 minutes. In the beginning, it may be longer. It could be an hour, but daily check-in points where they can ask questions and you can actually consolidate your time so they ask questions during that phase and help you, still manage getting other things done around that time. They should attend a new hire orientation and fill out paperwork and learn about the company. They can do webinars and they should shadow you or someone else. Expose them to as much as you can where they can get an accurate picture of what it means to work at your business. During the first month, you can kind of migrate to weekly one-to-ones with their direct supervisor, but they should still be meeting on a consistent basis with their direct supervisor. And this is because at the end of this is that 90-day review. We never want people to get to a 90-day review and be surprised. Someone should not reach a 90-day review and get fired and have it be completely shocking to them. They should know every step of the way that they're not meeting expectations. That is for legal reasons. That is to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit. And that is also from a people standpoint. No one wants to be shocked by that, and they shouldn't be. It's our job as employers to set the expectations. to provide the tools for them to do their job. It's their job to execute and or seek further resources. Okay. During month 1, you can test them out as well. Give them small projects with short deadlines and see how much they can handle. And then 90-day review. Again, this is where they're going to get certain benefits, where you can increase their rate of pay, and where you can celebrate milestones. Take a look back at what they've accomplished and really utilize it as an opportunity to celebrate what they've accomplished. That will build loyalty and reinforce their sense of purpose within the business. Okay, all of that was tip 1. Can you believe it? Our next 2 tips are short because what really matters here is consistency. Consistency is key. If you follow this format, if you go back and you do this and you do it consistently, you won't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you have to hire. You don't have to have that stress response where you hire the first warm body that you meet, and you can protect your business by having systematized, uniform consistency. And then you just pull out your hiring folder and you go to your interview and it kind of runs itself. You already know the drill if you go back and you set it up one time from the very beginning. Tip number 3, and this is the best tip yet because it's don't do it all yourself. You don't have to. You don't have to do it all yourself. You may be a solo business owner or you may not. But even if you're solo, here are some tips for how you can ensure that you can rely on your resources. Most of us utilize payroll companies. Payroll companies have onboarding systems to streamline the hiring process. So utilize that onboarding system. Here's the thing about payroll systems. They usually come very cookie cutter. They're not customized yet. Customize it. There are consultants, and if you want a referral to one, I know one, who actually specialize in customizing your payroll system so that it is systematized for you. It works for your specific business, and it's simply running through your process and hitting some buttons so that you don't have to search, you don't have to dig. It's going to do the heavy lifting for you, but it takes time to set up. So if you invest in the time now, in the future, it can kind of run for you. Rely on experts. All those documents we talked about, have your documents done one time, review them annually, and that's it. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. It could be expensive in the beginning, but it's the cost of peace of mind. Invest into your peace of mind. Thirdly, have someone who's already doing the job well, write the job duties and the description. So if you already have someone who's doing it, either on your team or maybe a friend has someone who has that position, use their job description and just edit it or have them write it for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then delegate. Delegate the checking of references to someone on your team. That can be done by an admin or an office assistant. No one says you have to be the one to do every single step of this process. Oh, and I skipped one. Have someone on your team interview and pre-screen them. So say you're hiring a paralegal and you already have a paralegal. Have that other paralegal interview that person. Who's better to know what it takes to do the job than someone who's already doing the job? But the point is that you don't have to do everything. So don't do everything. Okay. Rely on your resources. All right. So let's talk. If you have questions, if you're not yet our client and you need to begin protecting your business, if you're overwhelmed with hiring and how to do this, if you don't know how to protect your business or you have questions about your business in general, give us a call. This is our contact information, our phone number and our email, or you can pull out your camera and open your camera app and put it over this QR code and it will pop up with a link to schedule a consultation with us. Or you can reach out by any of the other means. Thank you so much for your time today. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat now. And I will take a few minutes of what is remaining to answer them. But if there are no questions, we will end our time and you're obviously free to go. But thank you again so much for your time and thank you for being here.